the Get Back Boys, our new podcast we're starting. For anybody, this is our first episode. For anybody who doesn't know, we're going to go around here and do introductions, but we're three buddies who already do stuff on YouTube with other passions we have, movies, TV, things like that. But we're all, I'd classify all three of us as, we kind of got our hands in every jar, in the kitchen. We like sports. We like a lot of different things. And so we finally decided we're doing all these other shows. So let's start a sports show specifically about sports. Here on the Get Back Guys, named after, our podcast is named after the famous coaches whose job is to pull NFL head coaches back from getting a penalty on the field. We're going to do our best to hold that ourselves back. We're the three main here. I'm Alex, and then others, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
I'm Nick. I'm Alex's brother as well.
A little brother. All right.
Yeah.
And I'm Kyle, and I am best friends with Alex, and I've known Nick for just as long as I've known Alex.
So we're here to start with a sports podcast. We're probably going to lean heavily more towards NBA and NFL. That's where we find our most love. And we're also we're going to be the host of the show. This is our show, the three of us. We're the Get Back Guys. We're going to have a big cast of regulars. We've been in a chat for about 6 years on Facebook with a ton of friends that are in our fantasy football league. And we finally the three of us decided, let's put this into a podcast form. Let's get some of those big personalities on here, and let's really just have a fun time with sports. Who knows if this will ever take off, but we're going to debate, talk sports. We got a Packer fan, Eagle fan, and Seahawk fan here. So for football, and then what is it? Miami Heat for me, Spurs, and then Kyle's sporting a big old Laker fan down there. Before Bronny, though. Same with me, kind of,
yeah.
But before Bronny.
You were not. You hopped on the Heat bandwagon so hard there they had LeBron.
The reason. I just got into basketball that year, but Wade is the reason. It'll always be Wade. I got his book right there. Love him. But we're going to start this show. We'll rotate hosts. We're going to touch on tons of topics. I know there's no sports right now.
Perfect time.
So it's perfect time. So this will air every Saturday right now at 11 a.m. We want you to start your weekend with us. Put us in. Hopefully we will be able to put this on Spotify as well as some other apps, as well as our YouTube show here that we're just recording. But we wanted to put it on multiple platforms and get this new show out there. So let's start with our first topic. We're going to do some of the more news stuff, I think, in this first episode, and then hopefully as time goes on, we'll bring in some new kooky characters, and we'll have a good time and do some big debates. I mean, we did a debate in our chat 2 weeks ago about top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, and it sparked a massive debate. So
always does.
So this will be a fun little
does.
podcast. This will be once a week on Saturdays for right now. If sports are going to be coming back, which is a topic we'll get into, we may move the time just because the weekends will be for your sports. So we may move when we air, but we're going to do one long podcast a week, and hopefully this will take off. We can maybe do some more episodes. So let's get into our first topic of today. Unless there's any other intros you two want to say anything.
I think you summed it up perfectly. Let's try this.
All right.
To get into
topic, we might as well just talk about the big news that came out today with the Washington, D.C. team retiring the name that they've had for years. And let's just jump in. Nick, why don't we start with you? What are your thoughts on that? And do you have any name ideas of what you think they might do or what you've heard that you like?
I think a name that you would be very fond of is the Eagle Hunters. I think it's a good thing Washington's been preying on you Philadelphia fans for years.
They haven't beaten us in decades.
But I think it's a long time coming. This should have happened a long time ago. They should have changed the name. But I'm glad they're changing it now. I think it's going to be interesting to see how other sports teams like the Cleveland Indians, the Atlanta Braves, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Blackhawks, things like that, kind of what's going to happen there, and then how it's going to bleed into potential like college programs and probably even to the high school level. But it was a long time coming. I mean, it's a racial slur that was the team name. So it's kind of ridiculous that it hasn't been changed yet, but I'm glad it is now. And I'm not really sure on any names. I don't know what direction they want to take it, but I think it's a great thing.
Out of all the other names in sports, this is specifically a slur. Like, this is an insulting name with an insulting logo. So they've got to get it out of there. It should have been gone long ago. I'm excited for it. Kyle, what are you thinking about it?
No, I'm right there with you. Personally, I never had thought about the name over the years, and I probably should have really been thinking about how it's not okay to have a team name like that one, or of any sort, like as Nick was saying, like Cleveland Indians and many others of that kind. So I agree with you guys. Like, it's time. I mean, odds are under Dan Snyder, it's not like the Washington team is really going to be good anyway, but at least they'll have a different name that's a bit better. So we'll see how it goes. They've been throwing out a lot of names like the Washington Warriors, and I think Washington Red Tails was also a really popular
Red Tails is
one.
a big media kind of Twitter popular right now, and I like the Red Tails idea. I think that would be cool. I know they'd have to do a lot of work to get the rights to do that. They've got to ask that branch of the Air Force and those guys, can we use your name? And they got to do a lot. I was talking to a friend of ours last night who mentioned this to me. Hopefully he will be on in future episodes as a regular, but he mentioned that he's heard the former Redskins player, a very good cornerback. I can't remember his name right now. It's escaping me, but he played in early 2000s, kind of late 2010s, all pro kind of player, suggested the Red Wolves, and then changing the name, calling like the stadium the Den, like using that as the nickname. You can stick with the colors. I kind of dig Red Wolves. I like that. I like Red Tails. I haven't heard a name I dislike. I think I do. I know Pat McAfee is the first person I heard say it on his show, but I love bringing in DC instead of Washington. I go with DC over bringing like Washington Red Tails, do the DC Red Tails. I think that's cool since it's in the capital. It's not actually in Washington State. So, any other thoughts you guys got on that?
Well, and are they 100% going to keep the same color scheme, or do you think there's a chance that they completely switch it up and just try to remove themselves from their old branding?
I hope they don't keep those colors. I've always thought those, like that yellow and red, was always kind of ugly combination.
I agree.
Bright green booger-looking jerseys.
Hey, we don't wear them often.
I've never thought.
Don't wear them often.
I don't mind the red and yellow blends they've done.
Yeah, I think they're okay, but I would be down. Like, I feel like it's a thing for, at least for fans. I know people are gonna, like if you grew up in the 90s or whatever, and you just were born with this as your team name, like you might be a little attached to it, but hopefully it's really an exciting thing for a fan base that kind of, has some, like, I really like Ron Rivera. I think Dwayne Haskins has a lot of potential. And so like adding, maybe even if they don't change the color scheme, just having like new jerseys and a new logo might like kind of spark something in the fan base. I don't know, because they kind of seem like they've been just like kind of on the bottom feeders for the last decade.
Did they I've completely lost my train of thought, but yeah, they have not been. I mean, they're historically good. They've won Super Bowls. They've had some great players, some Hall of Fame players. They haven't been great the last few years. I mean, what colors do you change it to? I mean, maybe keeping the red, but changing like the different style and the, just making it fresh. I wouldn't mind, because you already got two blue colored teams in the division. The Giants do blue and gray, and the Cowboys do blue and silver. Eagles do green and silver. So I like that they're red. But then again, it is the color associated with their former name. So they may switch it up. If they do something, I hope they do it real cool and not go the Chargers.
Yeah.
I mean, they might go to like the direction of like just brightening up their colors from like the darker yellow and red to something brighter? Because I mean, just this past year, we've been seeing teams changing up their uniforms and logos just by, with obvious changes made, but they've been brightening up their color schemes. Like the Rams did that, Chargers kind of did that with their
the
electric
Rams
colors.
look bad.
Not
the
saying
Chargers look good.
Oh, that's right.
Not saying they're all good.
The Rams
but,
look awful.
Yeah.
Sorry to shout out to our Rams buddy, but do not look good.
I know.
Sure. Yeah.
But, anyway, any other more thoughts you guys got on the?
Overall, I just think it's a great thing, and I think it's should be exciting for a fan base that is probably gonna have a team that wins 5 games next year. You know,
it'll be interesting for sure, just because we've seen, at least in this decade, like we've just have seen teams switch like cities, but we've never really seen them switch like actual team names all that much. I mean, I think we've done that one
moving.
What was that?
Not without moving, like in our era, especially if like the Oilers became the Titans when they moved to Tennessee.
Right.
Eventually.
Yeah, the only example is in the NBA over the last 10 years, the Hornets to the Pelicans.
I was gonna ask, I forgot about that change.
The Bobcats.
You don't see it often, but I mean, none of them were a racial slur.
No, yeah.
which is the big problem that and I'll transition into this, which is interesting because there's a lot of debate. It's like, well, they were a racial slur. Some of the other names of professional sport teams aren't. They're paying them their respects, things like that. Specifically for the Chiefs, for me, if they're going to change their name, they're going to change their name. I'm all for it. I know the Chiefs' history is really interesting because it's named after a white mayor, I believe, that he did a lot of work for Native Americans in Kansas City, and they dubbed him Chief. And then it was named after him, I believe. And I could be slightly off, but it's somewhere around there. Somebody told me that a year or so ago, which is just interesting. Like the origins of the names and obviously the community. I mean, I've used to work at a sports shop with a great friend of mine from Native descent. I'd love to get him on here sometime to talk about that, because I remember him talking about specifically the Washington name compared to other teams and things like that. So I don't know how they handle it. It's going to be interesting to watch. I hope our old high school changes. Our old high school was the Braves. I hope they change it personally, just because they used to go around doing the tomahawk thing. And I think that always made me uncomfortable. I'm ready to move on from that. So.
Yeah, I really think it's just like for the other names that are like more in the gray area and not just blatantly like Washington's was. I think it's up to the minority in the community to kind of whatever they say. If they say you should change it or you should keep it, that's what I'm going to go with.
I'm with you there. Any other thoughts, Kyle?
Yeah, kind of on the same page as with you guys, really. I think it does matter if a team name stays or go, just because of the history. If it does like toe that line, when it comes to different types of ethnicities and backgrounds and that sort. So while like the Chiefs could be okay because of that history that you just talked about, Alex, it's probably not okay with the Redskins. I'm not quite sure if there's any real history or explanation that could work there, to the best of my knowledge. And it kind of sounds like from everyone that I've been hearing that that's not the case. It's just a racial slur that needs to be gone.
Yeah, and I just find the Chiefs thing interesting. Like that's not what I thought the history would be, finding out that was what the origin of the name is. But I mean, if you're listening and not watching us on YouTube, we're 3 white guys, so we're the wrong people to really probably be talking about this, because it should have never been that. And I'm glad they're changing. I thought they'd announce a name today. I thought when they made a big deal that they were gonna retire it last night, there was a big deal they're gonna retire it today, and then they just retired it. Like, why not just retire it Sunday night? Like, I thought they were gonna retire it with, this is our new name, we've taken the last week or so, this is what we're gonna go with. But I guess they really need a long time to figure it out.
Yeah, and it kind of sounds like they had some ideas, only to find out through trademark searches that somebody kind of beat them to the punch on like all the good names. I don't know if you guys have seen that report, but I forget who it was exactly, but someone got like a whole bunch of trademarks that could have been similar to what the Washington team was going for, like a lot of the stuff that was being said on Twitter for like
And they
name
just bought him?
suggestions. Yeah, they bought him for cheap, so that way maybe if the team does want it, they'll get money out of it. That's my guess.
Smart.
Yeah.
That's smart on that guy making
Shout
money.
out to whoever that was.
I've not heard that. That's very
Yeah.
smart. Well, all right, why don't we transition here? Guys, are we gonna have sports?
I don't know.
MLB is first, right? Well, technically soccer was. Some minor league soccer leagues continued, and I think some major leagues. Again, we're naive. We're basketball, football mostly around here. So, but MLB is supposed to start, I think, in 10 days, 11 days, something like that. And
Yeah.
NBA is supposed to start on the 30th, so they've only got 17-something days left.
And there's already some NBA players starting to get COVID. Like I think Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
Russell
right?
got it. Yeah, so I think the NBA's definitely going to happen. Like they're already in the bubble, and it would take something catastrophic, I think, to derail the NBA. But the NFL is a different story, because I think because it's just so unpredictable with how cases are spiking in the United States, and they can't put people on a campus basically. Like you can't put that because
Talk of them doing it.
You have so many people, and if they do it, I'm here for it, and I obviously want it, and I think it's still more likely that it does happen because they can't afford to lose that much money probably than it doesn't, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
I read an article, I think on Bleacher Report, that said some NFL executive anonymously put out that the NFL hasn't even discussed not going. They've only discussed plans with like full-on limited, what we're doing, but they've never once thought about canceling. I feel bad for the college kids like Trevor Lawrence, this top-tier talent whose program is most likely going to be canceled. Yeah. And now what do? That's a year of your prime that you just sit and do, or a year of you getting, young and being able to.
So if it's canceled in the NCAA, I haven't really researched this, but does that mean that Trevor Lawrence would have to go back for another year?
I have no clue. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or would he be able to go in the draft? Because like there is the limit on 3 years you have to play, but would that actually take away a year of him going to the NFL? Or because I feel like he would probably declare for the draft if he could.
I think a lot of them would declare for the draft. I mean, they got a whole year just to be able to practice, not play.
They'd probably make an exception. To be honest.
I think they have.
So then that would be one of the weirdest draft we've ever had. If
Trevor Lawrence
have a whole year of college football and then a draft.
He wasn't eligible this year, right? He had He had to go back.
He has one more year left.
You
have to play till you're a junior, through your junior year, I believe.
I think they got to do something. They've got to pardon him or something.
Well, if you don't have the season, do you just, if they don't allow the eligibility, then you just do we not have a draft next year? Or do we have a draft, but you're drafting players you haven't seen play in, 18 months or whatever?
The NFL would still want to draft.
Yeah, it would just be one of the weirdest situations. Like, even if the NFL goes on, if college football doesn't happen, the draft is going to be so weird.
I wonder
because,
if the NFL
you're going off of people from 2 years ago.
I wonder if they put on a special type of combine. Like they change the combine that year and do something a little more intense. Like they actually have guys play games against each other and they do
scrimmages.
Kind of like the why can't I think of the name of the game a bunch of the colleges play? What's that big game where it's kind of like the Pro Bowl but for college? You know what I'm talking about, Nick?
The Senior Bowl.
The Senior Bowl. Well, they might do something like the Senior Bowl. And just kind of mix people up and do a lot more drills than and actually see them do some playing. But that's a lot of kids. I mean, they draft 200-something players. That's a lot of players to do all that with. And I don't know I don't think there's any world the NFL does not happen. I think the NFL, I think they're going full steam ahead. I think they're willing to buy out hotels and do whatever they have to get games because the TV money, I'm assuming
imagining
is
is insane.
most likely the biggest loss. I don't know the analytics, but I would assume that's the biggest loss. I know for the city, the workers and everything in the arenas and the fans like that. But I honestly, there's any way. Kyle, what do you think?
I would give it about 10% chance that the
Of
NFL doesn't go on, that
Yeah.
we don't have a season. But I'm right with you. I think they're gonna follow like what the NBA is doing. I even think they're probably not going to have people at the games. Even I think they're gonna make sure that they'll try and like keep people away from the games, unless if that's a city decision. But I would suspect that the NFL at all costs would try and make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see it. The NBA it feels like the guinea pig to me more than MLB. And I know, I've said it at the start of this show for our first episode. We are more NBA oriented than we might be MLB, but MLB.
Yeah, I think I'm the
like,
only one who watches any baseball, right?
I'd go to a game. That's about all.
Yeah, I mean, I watch a little bit. I'm an O's fan.
I've
So
heard of baseball.
they're bad. So
Maybe we'll bring on. We
It's
got
been
some
a couple
other
of down years
fans
for
around
me.
here, so maybe we'll have a special baseball episode or something that Nick can host. But
There we go.
But baseball too is a game where there is touching, but you're not tackling each other, you're not dunking over each other. It's a little different when it comes to physical contact. Not that it's not difficult, it obviously is, and those guys are freak athletes. But it feels a little different. The NBA being put in an arena where it's 12 guys just shoving each other for 60 minutes feels that's
sketchy.
the guinea pig. That's the guinea pig. And what do you like with Russell Westbrook? They're supposed to start. He should hopefully be cleared by the time that happens. But they tested, apparently 2 other people tested positive in the bubble already. So haven't heard much from Braun.
Yeah,
Braun sounds good.
Also for the NBA, there's 24 players total, right?
Yeah.
And you have 3 times that on a sideline.
Yeah.
For the NFL. So it's like even harder. And like, are they going to because like we've seen all the pictures of the masks that they're going to wear that like actually like has a filter in it. And
they're sending those mask helmets tested today, which was interesting news.
And so like, are they might require you to like, unless you go walk to a certain area by yourself, you might have to keep your helmet on at all times.
Yeah.
Right. Like they probably will require that. And it's like if one person gets it and they get it at like the day before the game and they go to a game, like what happens to the NFL?
Think they'll let them through. I think
but like what if they're not showing symptoms like that day or something, and or somehow if they pass it to if a handful of people get it during one game, like it comes out of a game and 2 teams that played each other both get double-digit cases or something, then that next week, then like what are they supposed to do? Because then that team's screwed because they've lost a bunch of players. So like I think they're being cautious enough, but it is just like thinking about it. Like I feel like they don't want to stop, but I just feel like there's more risk than we expect because no one thought the NBA was going to stop. Like when everything was happening at the beginning.
Oh, I remember that.
No one thought it was going to stop, and then it stopped out of nowhere. It wasn't a slow buildup. There was no talk about it.
They were the first, ended. Weren't they? Weren't they the first?
Yeah, because
big sports league and everything that said no, we're canceling our season or we're postponing it right now because we got to figure this thing out. And I remember when that hit, it felt like this is way more serious.
And so
it didn't feel like an overreaction. It felt this is serious.
Yeah.
So first Tom Hanks got it, and then the NBA shut down.
Yeah, because a Jazz player got.
That's right.
Got it. Or Rudy Gobert was the first public one to.
Was he?
To get it,
was it Rudy Gobert? I think it was.
Rudy Gobert, and then Donovan Mitchell was the next kind of high profile, and then it slowly filtered around. Brandon Graham for the Eagles has lost like 3 relatives to COVID.
Jeez,
it's terrible.
So
I think
Grandma,
I think the NFL will play, but I think it's not as guaranteed. I don't think it's as guaranteed as you two think it is. Like I think they are, if there's a chance that it doesn't happen or that they have to stop it, or because I just feel like we don't know what the situation is going to be like in a few months from now. but I hope it happens for sure,
I
obviously.
honestly will be a little like, I'll be surprised. I do not see a world where they don't go through and they don't have a season. I think they'll cancel the preseason. They've already sent out this weird new version of OTAs that they have to do. And the NBA is supposed to be testing everybody daily. Like
Yeah.
before a game, you get tested in the morning before you play your game later
Fair
in the
enough.
afternoon and evening. It's going to be harder for the NFL to do that. But if that's what their plan is to just push all games to later in the afternoon and test everybody to make sure that everybody gets cleared or stagger it out. I don't know how.
Well, and they can have games on Saturday if college is canceled. Probably.
Yeah, and I don't see any
They can
reason.
probably because all the TV networks are going to want NFL teams to go to Saturday as well if all of college football gets canceled, which I think it's far more. I think that could very well happen.
I mean, we're already not
Yeah.
getting the Ivy Leagues. There's your
Yeah.
Harvard and your Stanford. Like Stanford's big school that has been good in the NFL and produced. I mean, Andrew Luck. Zach
Richard
Ertz came from
Sherm.
Stanford.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richard Sherman. So it's you never know who's. It's a weird world we live in, and I want sports back so bad. I want it back. I want my sports.
Football will hurt the most. Excuse me.
First podcast jitters. I guess.
First podcast jitters. It'll definitely hurt the most for me. I'm actually looking. I don't watch basketball as frequently as you guys do, but I try to catch games every once in a while. I'm definitely going to be watching basketball once the games come back up. I just need a fix. I just need something.
So let's transition here, boys, and let's talk about what we really want to talk about. A little bit of that. Nick doesn't know if football's going to happen. Kyle says 10%, 90%. It's happening. Alex is going 100%. It's happening. But here's what we got to talk about. Patty signed a $500 million contract. And
Patty who?
Patty Mahomes is what we call him here.
Not familiar.
The Get
Patty
guys.
The God Mahomes.
Never heard of this
That's
god.
what we call him around here. Now, if anybody in our crew of 12 guys in our chat or whatever, I built the train for Patty. Nick built the train for Lamar, and I've now started a train for Josh Allen. That's going well. Is it going as well? No, but we're getting by.
Can we take a quick detour and can I tell the story of you building Patty up?
Yes.
Take like a few minutes because this is unbelievable. So Patty gets drafted, right? I don't even know who he is because there's a period of time where I watched a lot less football. So I'm starting to get really back into football in 2017. Patty plays one game. I literally don't know who Patty Mahomes is. I knew that the Chiefs drafted a guy. That was about it.
Up in the first round to take Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. So then
Bears got Mitch Trubisky.
Nothing is better than that. But so we get to the off season and we start a Madden League with our group of friends, we play a league of Madden where you draft people from scratch, create your teams.
Yep.
And typically you want to draft either an established star quarterback, so like a Tom Brady, a Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, people like that, or you want to get a young quarterback, and so you want to get like that year it could have been Mitch Trubisky or Deshaun Watson or Patty Mahomes, but Patty Mahomes only played a game, so he wasn't that high up, and I didn't really know who he was. And then Alex is like, "Oh, I'm going to take Patty Mahomes. He's going to be an absolute star in the NFL." Granted, he played one game. This is a true story. I've got many sources to back us up on this. So in our Madden draft, Alex decides to take Patrick Mahomes. He just keeps telling me, like, he's going to be
God,
an elite quarterback. He's going to be a god. Really, that's like what we were saying. So immediately,
could be a god.
Yeah, immediately I hop on the bandwagon because Alex is absurd at Madden, especially compared to me. So he's breaking all the stats in our Madden League. He's crushing everybody. He's not losing a game. And so I'm like, all right, Patty's going to be a god. So then fast forward to fantasy football season, and I have another league of fantasy with some of my friends that are involved in this group chat. So we're drafting for fantasy football, and all I'm talking about is Patty Mahomes. And I'm like, Patty Mahomes is going to be so good. My name for that fantasy was Patty the God Mahomes. I named him that.
You're welcome.
This is before 2018.
He went to my
And then, yeah, and they were like, who is this guy? And then week 1 comes along, dominates. Week 2 comes along, dominates. And I drafted him as my backup for that because I drafted him early for a backup quarterback, but I was like, I got to do it. And now they have to, everyone, they're like, you called it out. And I'm like, I didn't, Alex did. But I had to tell that story. He was on the Patty train forever, and I'm so happy he's getting the bag.
And out of our buddies, we, the three of us here tend to kind of watch college football. We're not as into it. It's more like we'll watch when a game's on, or maybe the national championship or some of the bowls. But for the most part, we find out who most of the players. I mean, there's always a few outliers like Trevor Lawrence I've known about, or I knew about Tua or Burrow a little early. But I never go heavily into him. And I knew Patty was good college quarterback. I knew he was highly touted, but I mean, Bears took Mitch Trubisky over him. And I mean, the guy's insane in real life. I mean, he's insane, but yeah, I built the train for him. And then next year, Nick builds the Lamar train, and then Lamar goes off. And everybody,
I knew
was like,
Lamar was the best
passer?
quarterback in that draft. I knew Lamar was the best in that draft.
Stud. But yeah, called the Patty. What?
Who was even in Lamar's draft? It's been forever. I don't remember.
Baker was 1. Yeah. Darnold, I think, was 3.
Yeah.
Rosen was like 9, and then Allen was 10,
Rosen
maybe.
Was 10,
okay. Yeah, it was.
Or,
yeah.
Rosen
somewhere around there.
Rosen was second to last. They took Josh Allen at 8, I believe. I think it went 1,
so
4,
late
8, 2.
Yeah, and 10. Then 32.
And then because
they traded up.
We traded out of the first and let them take Lamar Jackson, and then we got a higher second-round pick and took Dallas Goedert. So it worked out for me because he's a top 10 tight end in football, and anybody who says otherwise is incorrect. And I can't wait
to
that's
a discussion
tight end debate because it fires me up. People don't get it. They don't get it. Top 10 as a backup. Look at that. Anyway, so yeah, Patty. Now let's move into, does Dak Prescott sign for $1 billion contract? We know he wants it. Does Dak Prescott sign for $1 billion? They get rid of everybody because they can't afford anything else.
Even with all that money Jerry Jones has, there's no way we're seeing that contract from Dak Prescott.
Doesn't Dak I think he has to sign the tender this week. I think the franchise tag ends on Wednesday or Thursday this week.
Wednesday, yeah. So
he has to sign it, and if he doesn't, what does that mean? Is he officially holds out, or can he not play?
Honestly, I have no idea. Everyone just freaks out about the deadline. Like I don't really know.
I'm sure he'll sign it. I'm all right.
There's some penalty.
I think Dak's solid. I think he's okay, and I'm fine having an okay quarterback in my division. Speaking of our divisions,
I think. Nick. Wait, real quick. I think about Dak. It's what's going to be important. I think he's going to sign it. Probably no matter what. What's going to be interesting is like how much does Deshaun Watson get? And because they were the same draft, right?
Yeah.
No, he was a few years earlier.
No, Deshaun and Patty went,
Deshaun Watson, Patty Mahomes, and Mitch were the same class, which was
Dak was before Dak was a year before that because Dak played in the 2016
Dak
playoffs.
was in my draft class with
Wentz
off the year before.
That's right.
He was
but Deshaun Watson's probably going to get paid this year, right? Because they're not going to franchise tag him. So what he gets paid is going to be really interesting, I think, because I think Dak is going to say, I've won a playoff game against a top 4 quarterback in the NFL, top 2 quarterback in the NFL, Russell Wilson at Kyle. Like Deshaun Watson's never won a playoff game. Dak is like, Dak's like, at least I've won a playoff game. Like he has that, even though I think Deshaun Watson's considerably better. It's going to be interesting to see if he forces them to pay him similar type of money that Deshaun Watson gets, or if they make the smart move and move off of him.
No.
Because I think that would be awesome.
Keep him. I don't want Trevor Lawrence or any of these young guys coming into Dallas when we need crap quarterbacks over there. Dak's fine, but keep Dak. We can handle Dak Prescott. I think Watson is going to be curious because he's lost the best receiver arguably in football for the last 6 years. I mean, Hopkins was putting numbers up, absurd numbers with Brock Osweiler and
Brandon Weeden.
Weeden. Like, you take that away, and now it's going to be interesting.
Although
to see what
I
their
still
tier
think
is.
his receiving core, though, is still one of the best in the NFL.
I mean, they're good, but
because you've got. I mean, although they have a lot of people who tend to not be healthy, but if they're healthy, I mean, you got Cooks, Stills, Cobb, and Fuller. Like
Fuller letting me down in fantasy every year. I think this is the year he'll be healthy and the deep threat we think he is, and every year he's not healthy. I get 1 week with 30 points, and then I get nothing again.
I think not bad either. I think for Deshaun Watson and the Texans, at least, real quick, like I think they're kind of still the favorites to win the division, even though they probably got worse this offseason. Because like I don't think the Colts got that much better with Phillip Rivers. The Jags are getting worse by the day.
They're tanking,
and the Titans are going to go 9-7. So like. I feel like Deshaun's in this weird place where he's got like a decent team around him, but he's just destined to lose to Lamar Jackson and Patty Mahomes for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and if Burrow ends up being as good as people think, or if Tua can be very good.
Or Cam Newton.
Cam going in with New England, which for anybody new to our viewing, I used to be actually a big fan of New England. I used to root for them back in the day, years and years ago. I liked the idea of watching greatness play. I liked that. And then I met one real hardcore New England fan and immediately absolutely hate the team. So I can go either. I love Cam Newton, so I could go either way. If Bill's good with Cam, I'm happy for Cam. But if they're bad, I'm happy as can be. Same with Tom over in Tampa, because New England fans, we know a couple of them that are okay, but we used to know just an absolutely difficult fan to deal with.
Yeah, I love Cam Newton so much that I feel like I'm going to find myself like rooting for him specifically, which kind of freaks me out because he's going to be wearing a Patriots jersey.
Yeah.
But I love Cam Newton and I want him to succeed. And honestly, I want him to be so good this year that they let him go because they don't want to pay him. That's kind of what I hope happens, because this is a big year for him to get money because he's getting paid nothing for the talent that he is.
And it's absurd how he signed that deal. It blows my mind. I get he wants to do something and he's mad, but there's no reason.
He is a perfect fit. Like Josh McDaniels got Tim Tebow to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger in the middle of his prime.
Did take everything.
Imagine what he's going to be able to do with that elite defense that the Patriots have, even if it takes a step back, and Cam Newton. Not good things.
Don't love their receiving core. Do not love their receiving core. Also, we got word that Gronkowski gets a 95 Madden rating at a tight end. Guy's taken a year off and has been brutally hurt. And people need to relax. They've already got a great tight end there. He's a backup tight end. They're going to
Aaron Rodgers is 89 overall. Let's pump the brakes on the Gronk train here.
Yeah, relax. And let's transition into maybe our last topic for our first episode here.
Did we even talk about
Patty's contract? Not really a lot, actually.
True. Patty, good for Pat. I love Pat. He's the god. And I love him, and I would be very happy because I'm such an Andy Reid fan. I'd be very happy for the next 10 years. He goes and wins a bunch of Super Bowls, and people go, "Nah, these two are better than Brady and Belichick. They really are, and they're elite. And Patty's the greatest. I'd be so happy. I love Pat. I absolutely adore him. I think he's a great quarterback. No Carson Wentz, but he's pretty good. He stays on.
I think the deal is really good for the Chiefs and good for Patty getting some security. And it obviously it's going to in like the 3 to 6 year range. it's going to strain them a lot, probably. Like right when the contract starts for the first handful of years, it is going to be like Patty's going to have to play probably pretty well if they're going to win a Super Bowl, would be my guess, because we've just seen it over and over again with quarterbacks getting paid top dollar. You have to play great if you're going to lift those teams up to a Super Bowl. But in the years after that, that's the middle of his prime though. And if he plays like he's as good, it's infinitely worth it.
Yeah.
And then in the few years after it, it's going to be a good deal for the team, and they're going to be able to do probably some similar type things of what the Saints have been doing for the last few years, except Patty's going to be way younger than Drew Brees.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great deal.
And they can adjust
even if they have a couple of tough years.
And his deal's for 12 years. His last 2 years of his rookie deal still go. This is an extension, it doesn't wipe the 2 years away. So it's actually 12 years. And it's actually for like $477 million, but there's so many incentives that if he does all that, he can get up to 503, like making the championship game a certain amount of times and the Super Bowl a certain amount of time. Like there's all that kind of incentive, not being hurt. I think it's a good deal for both Kansas City. I think I don't think he's set the standard. I don't think Watson is going to get a contract like that. I don't think any quarterback is. I mean, we've seen other quarterbacks get contracts like that. McNabb got a really long contract. Bledsoe got a big contract. Nick got a big contract. Favre got a big contract. So we've seen him, but I think Patty makes sense. We haven't seen him hurt. We've seen him do nothing but be elite. He's elevated.
He was hurt last year.
Yeah.
He was out like 2 games.
Hurt or tweaked?
I mean, he popped his kneecap off.
I don't remember.
Well, he didn't play against the Packers.
There was video of him on the field, like getting his knee popped back in.
Yeah, he missed 2, but he's lucky that it wasn't worse than it was, I think.
Yeah.
Like his kneecap popped off, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like they had to put it back on or something.
Still, he hasn't missed significant time. I'll retract and say that. He has not missed significant time. He's already won a Super Bowl. It makes sense for him
in that same year.
And a guy like Lamar, it's like, well, he's so much more mobile. His injury risk might be up, and so do we? I don't see many quarterbacks signing this. It makes me so happy this happened after Wentz signed his deal, because Wentz is looking cheap as all heck, and I love it.
I think with Patty, the year length, that's a very specialty case because there's no players in the NFL besides Patty Mahomes that I don't think any franchise would want to sign for a 10-year contract, because there's just way too much uncertainty there. But I think the
10-year Waterboy contract.
Well, if I'm the Bears, I'll give Mitch Trubisky, Jimmy Graham,
Mitch
10-year contracts. But
our buddy's gonna listen to this first episode and be like, "All right, you said I could be on this show. Get me on. I'm sick and tired of these shots that you're taking."
But I think what's more interesting to look at is the number, and to see how close does Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson get to 45?
Yeah,
because I think they're like high 30s,
45
low 40s per year. So the per year number I think is more interesting. Sure. But I think it's going to be a while. I think it's going to be like 5 to 7 years before someone actually surpasses 45, unless things go up drastically. But if the league's going to lose a lot of money this year, then I feel like handing out $45 million to any player other than Patty Mahomes, the only other one who can do it is Lamar Jackson, I think. That could even be in the realm right now.
Maybe.
I mean, I would include Deshaun Watson personally, but I know that's going to be tough with how Bill O'Brien is managing things up there. And I just also really love Deshaun Watson. I love watching him play so much.
Love Watson.
No. Yeah.
Oh, he's good, but I still wouldn't.
But I think
Lamar's
better.
Granted, because Lamar, I mean, neither of the did Deshaun win a playoff game 2 years ago?
Yeah, he beat the Colts, right?
He did beat the Colts?
Andrew Luck's Colts? I think so. I can double check, or someone can.
I think he did, actually. I think he did beat. So actually, that's a statement that I might have gotten wrong earlier when I said Dak Prescott won a playoff game, and he didn't.
No, Dak Prescott beat the Seahawks.
No, but I said that he won a playoff game, but Deshaun hadn't. But I think Deshaun has won one as well, actually.
Deshaun Watson's won one, I believe.
Yeah. But still, I I mean, Deshaun's incredible too, but Bill O'Brien's also just such a wild card that I'm not really sure. But like, I think Deshaun Watson is a borderline elite
They
quarterback.
beat Buffalo last year and then lost to Kansas City. Remember?
That's
Buffalo,
right.
yeah, they didn't beat the Colts the year I'm thinking of. So
Yeah, they lost to the Colts.
But I think Lamar Jackson is like a generational talent. So that's the only other person right now who's in the league that I think could get close to 45 million a year. But I think Deshaun could also maybe get like 40.
I wonder.
I would love it.
I wonder if Dak is sitting back going, let me sign this tender for 1 year, hold off, and see what all these old quarterbacks, what happens. Because if they're surrounding Brady and Breeze and over in Indy, like if they're surrounding all these guys, Phillip, with a bunch of talent, and then they retire, Dak's sitting there going, heck, I'll go over to Tampa Bay, play with Mike Evans and Howard and the great roster they got over there, or go play in New Orleans. He might be sitting back and just wait for the market to open up more too. We don't know. That could be his idea.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins, I think part of his plan was kind of that similar thing after a while. Like he got franchise tag, twice? Probably the second time he was like, I'm going to play this last year, then see what options I have. And he got a good option in the Vikings.
At the time, he was the highest paid quarterback in the league. And then a bunch of guys signed and over.
But I also think that the Kirk Cousins situation was a lot of Washington being willing, like they didn't want to keep him. They could have kept him if they wanted to. And I think it's a similar thing with, if the Cowboys want to keep Dak Prescott and they want him to be the face of their franchise in the future, they're going to get it done. I think Dak is probably, it would be, if the franchise that drafts him wants to keep the quarterback, 99% of the time they're going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
but like in Kirk Cousins' case, especially, I think the Redskins were like, this guy's not the guy.
I mean, Dak took over for Tony Romo after years of success. Well, they didn't win that many playoffs. I don't think.
It really did not.
But Tony was good, though.
Tony was good, but the Cowboys really were not that great.
They had some really good years, though.
A couple of solid years, sure. Made a couple of decent runs, but
they probably should have been in the Super Bowl in 2007. Right? Isn't that the year?
I never want us to talk about Cowboys in the Super Bowl. Let's transition into our final topic. We'll stick with NFL since that's where we're feeling, and maybe we'll do this again with NBA on episode 2. How are you feeling about your individual teams going into the season? Packers, Eagles, and Hawks. Let's start with the Hawks over there. How you feeling?
Mixed emotions.
Oh
In Russ, I trust, baby. That's all I gotta say. I don't feel good about our defense right now, between there being a lack of any sort of pass rush and looking like our secondary might get worse if Quinton Dunbar is going to end up being arrested. That's kind of looking like it's heading towards that trajectory. And I don't really trust our offensive scheme that much. I don't mind the theory Pete has when it comes to, running the ball, let Russ get his moments to shine and make the big play where it counts. I don't mind that so much. It's just the lack of creativity. And I think Pete has a hard time understanding that he needs coordinators and coaches around him that are a bit more up to date on how to play the game in today's NFL as it was a couple of years ago. Because I think Pete's still stuck in a couple of years ago and it's not working. But I do trust Pete when it comes to motivating the team, but it's just a matter of there just not being many other playmakers outside of Russ and just the lack of creativity on both sides. So mixed just because I trust Russ with every ounce of my being, but
I mean, Russ
I just would like
your butt for the last 3 years. It's without.
I mean, especially last year. Like last year,
Flynn
you
out
see
there
that
still for you. So
what was that?
Could have been Matt Flynn out there for you still. So
hey,
yeah,
don't disrespect Matt Flynn. One of the
Flynn
greatest backups ever.
They were not prepared for Russ to be that good because Matt Flynn, you don't sign a guy to that big of a contract. And then just all of a sudden it was like, this rookie is beating Matt Flynn out. And I remember most people being like, makes sense. Matt Flynn had one good game.
But also Matt Flynn in 2013 when Russ was going on to a Super Bowl, the Packers would have missed the playoffs. The Packers were not that good that year because it was first year he broke his collarbone, and somehow Matt Flynn did what Brett Hundley could not and helped the Packers slide into the playoffs that year.
How you feeling about Packers this year, Nick?
Yeah, well, first, actually, on the Seahawks, the one thing I'm worried about you guys for the future is I've seen it before with Aaron Rodgers, and I'm nervous that you guys are going to waste. Like, I don't think Russ is quite as good as Aaron Rodgers was in the thick of his prime, but obviously Russ is at worst a top 4 quarterback, at best top 2, and I'm scared that you guys are going to waste some of his potential. Because I just, like, as much as I get frustrated, like, I'm not the hugest Russ fan in the world. I still want to see a guy be successful. And as much as I don't like the Seahawks at times as a Packers fan, I still want to see a talented player be utilized to his full potential. And so I'm a little nervous about that, but also DK is exciting for the potential. Your offense, if DK takes a leap forward like he can, I think that would be exciting. But I'm nervous that you guys are more playoff contenders and not Super Bowl contenders without some talent. So a little bit of lack of talent, because I can't even think since 2014. Like, I know you've won a couple playoff games, but I can't even think of a notable playoff win necessarily. Like, you beat Josh McCown. Like, that's the only thing that concerns me for. Yeah, just taking shots at both of you right now.
Barely beat Josh McCown. That's
on a torn hamstring.
So that's the one thing I'm nervous about.
Hamstring. Nate said you're not winning that game. Nate not tearing nothing.
But
love you, Nate.
But I definitely think you guys are a heavy playoff contender for sure.
Agreed. Yeah.
Now that there's
I'm just a little worried. Yeah, for sure. 7 playoff teams. I'm just a little worried that you guys aren't gonna fully lift Russ up, but maybe, I mean, Clowney might still be in the books, or Griffin to help pass rusher or edge defender. But for the Packers, I mean, obviously we had a terrible draft. I think I'm still not very happy with it. I think it's okay.
J-Love.
Yeah. I think Brian Gutekunst is just not a great GM. He's made 3 good signings basically, and the rest have been bad. So I'm still nervous about the future of the Packers, but I also think people have overreacted a little bit to the draft. I think the Vikings crushed their draft, but they lost. If Everson Griffin doesn't re-sign, they lost Everson Griffin and Stephon Diggs and 3 of their starting cornerbacks. You know, their corners weren't necessarily great, but I think that's a lot of talent to overcome for a team that overperformed last year in the postseason. So I'm not too nervous about our division. The Lions are always the Lions. Zadarius Smith, I think, is going to continue to be a stud, and I'm excited to see what Aaron Rodgers can do in another year in Matt LaFleur's system. So I think the Packers will probably regress a little bit. I think they'll probably be like a 10 or 11 win team. Obviously, I hope they win more than that. The Packers fan in me, I think we'll win the division. I'd be shocked if we miss the playoffs especially unless like there's a major injury to like Zadarius or Jair, or obviously Aaron or Devontae. But I think we'll still be a good team, but I don't know. We still might be kind of development from Jair Alexander or some key defenders and a receiver away from being a true Super Bowl contender. So I think we're maybe just like a tick above like where I kind of rank the Seahawks. But I think people have overreacted a little bit to the draft, and on the Packers side and like on the Vikings side.
Yeah, for me, love my roster top to bottom. Hate Brandon Brooks going down because he's should have been comeback player of the year in the NFL last year, and it's a travesty he wasn't. I'm going to say this as an Eagle fan. I'm going to get it out of the way about my boy Desean Jackson, who I've been a huge fan of for a long time. Posted some very, very stupid things on social media. I was giggling because Kyle decided this was the nice time to take a big chug of water there. But he said some very horrible, dumb things. I personally don't believe that he fully was. I think it was heat of the moment and he didn't really realize it. Obviously, when you quote Hitler, you're doing some bad. I actually I'm happy the team did not get rid of him, because I do think this was a case of we can educate people. and I've loved the response. I mean, a couple people, former Eagle, Chris Long, who I love, Malcolm Jenkins, who I love, have really come out against him, but there's been a lot of people. I love the Julian Edelman post saying this is a time to learn. How about I take you to the Holocaust Museum and I'll share my history, and you take me to the African American Museum and show me your history, and let's learn and grow with each other. I mean, he's been doing a lot of work. He's been meeting with Holocaust survivors, and I've seen some clips that they've released, and I get the Eagles' decision not to get rid of him. I think it's smart. I really do think this. I think you can tell when somebody's being real and somebody is speaking without thinking, and they're moving too fast and in the heat of the moment. I think we've all been there. And I don't think that's what it is. I don't think Desean really meant it. Obviously, it wasn't good, but I am glad we are keeping him because I think he's a really good player, and I think he can learn from it. I just want to get that out of the way. But I love my roster top to bottom. I personally think we're the best in the division. I don't see Danny Dimes being any more than an underperforming Eli Manning. So underperforming, I guess, gets you one Super Bowl. So good for Danny Dimes. I don't really think Washington's a threat. Dwayne Haskins did kind of shred us a little bit, but I like our roster. I like what we brought in. We're rumored to be making a move this week. So next podcast for episode 2 might have some big news. I am just so tired. I want Wentz to I want people to shut up about him. And I just want him to just play and be good. I want it so bad. I'm so sick of it. I'm sick of idiots who don't think that he isn't great because he clearly is. I'm so tired of the narrative. I'm so glad Patty signed his contract now. So people 3 months ago were like, this Wentz deal's stupid. And it's like, relax. It's great for the team. I hope we bring back or go get somebody to play. I'd like Jason Peters to come back, move to guard for Brandon Brooks' spot. I think that would be the best move, but there's a couple other free agent guards that are pretty solid that I wouldn't mind coming over, but I like my team. We just need to stay healthy. Doug tends to get a little too Kyle says he wants to be Seattle to get a little less boring and play a little more creatively, and Doug needs to sometimes not be creative and needs to hone it in and just run up the gut. And I am excited for Miles Sanders. I think Miles Sanders is going to take a big leap up. I think he's going to be – people are going to look at him as a top back in football next year. But I do love our roster. I'm excited. I really want football because I really love our roster. I just hope to God we could just stay healthy because that's been our problem.
Your roster is ridiculous. Like, you guys – I think people are kind of forgetting how good your offseason was, and you guys should be like – one of the clear victors for how good your offseason is. It does matter, like, how injuries play out, like, because last year wasn't good for you guys.
We've been
for sure.
The top 3 injured team for the last 2 years. I think we were 1 and then 2 or 3 or something like that for total injuries since winning the Super Bowl, and we just gotta stay healthy.
That's also a nervous thing because if you are injury prone for a 3rd straight year, then you have to really start questioning Doug Peterson's practicing and the whole staff. Because I think that was something with the Packers. The Packers every year under Mike McCarthy just felt like they were injured. And last year was the first year I feel like I've ever experienced where, for the most part, the Packers were healthy outside of a few little injuries throughout the season.
And this year, they
Matt LaFleur focused so much on resting, making sure you don't hit each other in practice, doing these things because everyone's talented enough. It's all understanding schemes and timing and just kind of physically getting yourself ready versus like hitting each other on the field, you know?
Yeah, and this year they brought in all new doctors for Philly. It's new medical staff. They kept some guys for the last few years that I think they kept a couple guys from the Chip Kelly era that we had still had, and I think it was time to just do something new. But some of it's been unlucky because a lot of ours haven't even necessarily, like, it's just freak crazy accidents that happen in a, you know, like Wentz's concussion. Players get hit in the head all the time. Cheap shot like that, it's a concussion. That's one thing, but it's when you're putting your body in play. Oh, it was a cheap shot. And it was
an accident.
I'm so glad Green Bay ripped you apart the week after.
I was gonna say you might get Clowney anyway.
Win. And we might even get Clowney.
Yeah.
If you got Clowney, I'd be so happy.
I don't even want Clowney. I mean,
I'll take him.
I mean,
Yeah, I'd love
take
Clowney.
Clowney. I love Clowney. I'd take him, but statistically, Brandon Graham was better. And statistically, I think it was Vinny Curry who played quite a bit for us coming in for injuries, had about the same level of stats.
Well, Clowney, because you guys, was your run defense that good last year?
Yes. Our run defense was like 2 or 3 in the NFL. We're always good at run defense. We got Fletcher.
I thought you guys dropped off last year. I mean, I
No.
knew you were number 1 for a few years.
Secondary was brutal. We've been a top run defense for the last since we got there.
But that's the reason to get Clowney. He's a very inconsistent pass rusher, but he's a great run defender on the edge.
Fletch is fine. Fletch will take care of it.
I'd take Clowney, but
I want Adams. I hope we're trading Alshon Jeffrey and Rasul Douglas and like a 3rd round pick and go get Adams. That's what I want. Get big.
Well, if you did that,
out of there.
I think that would catapult you into bona fide Super Bowl.
Although I do like
in the
some of
NFC.
our safeties we brought in. Will Parks is going to be a stud, and the guy we drafted in the 4th round, Kayvon Wallace, is. I keep just reading nothing, but this guy was a steal to draft because he's looking good.
Never heard of him.
Oh, you will. And Jalen Reagor was the best pick ever. Are you kidding?
You also got.
Who do we get?
You got Darius Slay as well. Like,
oh yeah.
Thanks for taking him.
I'm telling you, your offseason was one of the best ones, and no
Slay.
one's talking about it.
Well, and you got Goodwin, Marquise Goodwin, which is a
Goodwin too.
Decent signing.
Fast.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we should probably end it here, guys, for the first episode of the Move Back Guys podcast.
The Get Back.
The Get Back
Back
What
guys.
did I say?
The Move
I said
Move Back.
Is that what I said?
Yeah.
Oh, episode 1 Jitters, I guess. The Get Back Guys podcast. We will be back next Saturday. Might have some more guests on, so watch out for that, guys. Please share us around all platforms. So this should hopefully be up on a couple different ones. So please do that. It is on YouTube under the name. This is going to be real fun. It's going to be a fun ride. Can't wait. So for us, we're out of here. We don't have a sign off yet. So yeah, see you guys. Go Birds.
Later.
Audio Jungle.